Extroverts are happy making decisions in the thick of events, while introverts want to reflect before taking action. Extroverts tend to move quickly and try to influence situations directly, while introverts give themselves time to develop their insights before exposing them to the world. Extroverts are happy making decisions in the thick of events, while introverts want to reflect before taking action. The purpose of informative speech is to provide interesting, useful, and unique information to your audience. By dedicating yourself to the goals of providing information and appealing to your audience, you can take a positive step towards succeeding in your efforts as an informative speaker. As an informative speaker. The purpose of the informative speech is to provide interesting, useful, and unique information to your audience. By dedicating yourself to the goals of providing information and appealing to your audience, you can take a positive step towards succeeding in your efforts and an informative speaker. Most of us spend on average 1800 hours per year in our jobs and will work for about 40 years before retirement. When you consider this, when you consider the amount of time spent in the office, you soon realize how important it is to feel a sense of achievement at the end of the day rather than just meeting financial objectives. Most of us spend on average 1800 hours per year in our jobs and will work about 40 years before retirement. When you consider the amount of time spent in the office, you soon realize how important it is to feel a sense of achievement at the end of the day, rather than just meeting financial objectives. Quite obviously, a significant rise in the number of people in a given area or country will affect the demand for a whole host of goods and services. Note that a change in the structure of population will increase the demand for some goods but reduce the demand for others. Quite obviously, a significant rise in the number of people in a given area or country will affect the demand for a whole host of goods and services. Note that a change in the structure of the population will increase the demand for some goods but reduce the demand for others. With a population of only just over 30 million living in the world's second largest country, Canada is justly renowned for vast tracts of wilderness untroubled by population either from industry or from intensive farming methods. A major conservation issue is the battle to stop the logging of virgin forest in northern Ontario. With a population of only just over 30 million living in the world's second largest country, Canada is justly renowned for the vast tracts of wilderness untroubled by pollution, either from industry or from intensive farming methods. A major conservation issue is the battle to stop the logging of virgin forest in northern Ontario and on the west coast. Yet, this landscape which appeared so alien and confronting to the white settlers and explorers, had been home for thousands of years. to indigenous Australians for whom the plains, ranges and deserts were. Yet this landscape, which appeared so alien and confronting to the white settlers and explorers, had been home for thousands of years to indigenous Australians for whom the plains, ranges, and deserts were a sustaining spiritual and integral part of their existence. The interludes which break up the game play action, and which, because they can be made to a higher level of animation, often provide the most visually arresting sequence of a game, combined with a taste of bizarrely complicated recursive plots and long sequences of wordy, expli- wordy explicatory dialogue. This turns the games into a bit of a drag. The interludes, which break up the gameplay action, and which, because they can be made to a higher level of animation, often provide the most visually arresting sequences of a game, combined with a taste of bizarrely complicated recursive plots and long sequences of wordy explicatory dialogue. This turns the games into a bit of a drag.
The elephant is the largest living land mammal.
The elephant is the largest living land mammal.
There are lots of opportunities to meet new people in this course.
There is lots of new opportunity to meet new people in this course.
The computer crashed and I hadn't saved my work.
The computer crashed and I hadn't saved my work.
You must include your name and identity number on the registration form.
You must include your name and identity number on your registration form.
The main issue is to decide how we want to launch the new product.
The main issue is to decide how we launch our new product.
This paper is the best one to look at first.
This paper is the best one to look after fast.
What's going on that can help patients leave their fears at the door?
What can be here? The patients leave their doors open.
Inflation rose by 2% over this time last year.
Inflation rose by 2% over last year by this time.
Applicants for the course should preferably have a degree in English or journalism.
Applicants should be preferably have course in English or journalism.
After 1830, periodicals appeared in large numbers in America.
After 1833, the periodicals appeared in large number in America.
Soil erosion can be caused by increased rainfall and changes in plant growth.
Soil erosion can occur by increased land forest and soil erosion. Volunteers who incurred expenses reimbursement available. Postage, phone calls, meeting, meals, training, travel cost, uniform, and other. The image gives information on volunteers who incurred expenses and reimbursement available in different places. The picture gives more details on numbers, percentage, and different sizes. On the picture, I can see 10%, 2%, 30%, 40%. On the picture, I can see postage, phone calls, mates. On the picture, I can see training, travel cost, uniform, and other. On the picture, I can see one of the minimum point and the other one is the maximum point. To conclude, conclusion. Education pays. Unemployment rate in 2007. Median weekly earning in 2007 dollars. Doctoral degree. Master's degree, bachelor's degree, associate degree. Bureau of Labor Statistics. The image gives information on education pays and unemployment rate in 2007 and different years. On the picture, I can see different percentages, numbers, bars, and different degrees. On the picture, I can see red color, blue color, white color. On the picture, I can see Bureau of Labor Statistics. On the degree, on the screen, I can see doctoral degree, master's degree, bachelor's degree. On the picture, I can see 1497, 1165. On the picture, I can see one of the minimum point and the other one is the maximum point. The picture is to concluding conclusion. Comparison of fundamental needs model with Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Stimulation needs, status esteem needs, security needs, belonging needs, self-esteem needs, safety needs. The image gives information on comparison of the fundamental needs and Abraham Maslow's hierarchy theory of the different areas. On the picture, I can see numbers, percentage, years, and various issues. On the picture, I can see status esteem needs, stimulation needs, security needs. On the picture, I can see belonging needs, safety needs, physiological needs. On the picture, I can see different colors, white color, red color, blue color. On the picture, I can see one of the minimum point and the other one is the maximum point. To conclude, conclusion.
Coming out of the 19th century with all that happened, and so quickly, some of these ideas, some of these theories, like thermodynamics and kinetic theory, they didn't blend the way they should have. Thermodynamics has its roots in matter. How material things respond to heat and temperature and so forth. The laws of thermodynamics were thought to be absolute. Now take kinetic theory. If matter consists of atoms in random motion, and that's what matter is, then you open up the possibility that there will be fluctuations in samples of matter such that the laws of thermodynamics can momentarily be violated. Are the laws of thermodynamics valid? Absolute. Are they obeyed statistically? On average, they're obeyed, but they can be violated during unusual times. All right?
Thermodynamics was the main topic of the lecture. He talked about so quickly, services, series, and thermodynamics. He talked about matter, material things, heat, and temperature. He talked about absolute kinetic theory, magnetic theory, random motion. He talked about possibility, fluctuations, law be violated, law will be violated, valid, and absolute. He also talked about the rules are obeyed. To conclude, this lecture provided crucial information.
What is the term for the money people pay to the government to support public services?
Taxes.
What material is normally used to make windows and light bulbs?
Glass. Aluminium. Glass.
Who prepares and sells medicine in a shop or hospital?
Pharmacist. Pharmacist.
Where on a college campus would a periodicals collection be located?
Library. Library.
What is the inedible center of a peach, cherry, or grape called?
Seed. Seed. Inedible.
To find a detailed topographical map of Africa, what kind of reference book would be best to use?
Atlas. Atlas. Half a lifetime ago, I made a lifestyle choice to exchange a city terrace from a cottage and city terrace farm recipe. For a farm, cottage, and I knew it was a good idea because I had been there before, and that also meant I was familiar with some of the minor disadvantages of country, such as uncertain water supply, the absence of central heating, The means of communication. The means of communication in society has become an integral part of the rising debate in the present world, while the proponent peer reviewing and the proponents of the arguments are in favor. However, the opponents are completely against the relevance of the impacts of communication methods. In my opinion, society today has changed, has more positive impacts than the negatives are. There are several arguments in favor of my belief. The most prominent one is that the means of communication have rapidly changed over the past 10 or more years, according to the research conducted by Western Sydney University. The respondents relied on the on the other hand, critics may point out that one of the most significant disadvantages of negative impacts of communication is that it has turned all in essential life. Post. As this has created a mess in our life society. In conclusion, although there are numerous demerits associated with the means of the advantages outweigh the disadvantages and the impacts of this. The skills you develop on this course will help you become more confident and competent in managing written and social aspects in your current careers. It will you further study in areas. It will prepare you for the further study in area. We plan to provide you with the opportunity to hear about the work of professors who have been involved in the past. We have had confirmation that they will give talks on their subjects to your group. Generally, currently first day. And I will verify the careers. There are also dedicated career services available at the university you will be entitled to use, which this will include some written work, essays, as well as group work, short presentation, and you will be taught how to do these of the assessment. Details of the assessment, what paragraphs. A University of London team found that people who went with their initial response on a test of visual perception questions included picking out an anomaly in a pattern of symbols did better than those who were given more time to ponder. The subconscious brain recognized a rotated version of same symbol. Anomaly pattern. With their initial responses, visual perceptions. Who went with their perceptions did better than those who were there. University of London found people who went with their initial response on a test visual perception did better than those who were given more time to think. The recognized related version of symbol as different conscious brain visioned and hyperbole still, whether rotated or not. The researchers on the project when the subjects had the researchers on the project concluded. When the subjects had time to engage their high-level functions of relying their intuitive responses, they were more probable, more likely to be wrong, thanks to their ability to hijack our most primal desire for connection, distraction, and validation. Smartphones have become some of the best-selling devices of all time. Apple have sold more than 1 billion iPhones since its launch. By one estimate, we spend an average almost 5 hours a day at our little screen. Staring at her. All of this suggests that our relationships to our phones might not be sufficiently intellectualized, which is why Brian's MacBook comes as a relief. That is why. That is why. All of these suggest our relationship with our phones might not be sufficiently intellectualized. That is why Merchant American journalist Meg's blog Motherboard unpacked the history of iPhone in a way that makes it seem inevitable in its outline and surprising in its detail. It seems both. In England, it is well known that access to university on average varies sustainability by the level of potential income and The students from poorer families access different types of university than those from wealthier backgrounds. However, the question of whether graduates' earnings vary their socioeconomic background amongst graduates attending similar universities and taking the same subject has remained poorly understood. Depending on its corresponding to However, the question of whether graduates' earnings vary has remained poorly understood. Total limited data. Understood, limited by data availability. Thus far, hence limited by data. Our unique administrative database offers substantial advantages in this crucial question. Our administrative database offers substantial advantages in addressing this. The findings are also relevant for myriad other issues that benefit from better information on variation in graduates' earning. Benefit from better information on institution variation in graduates' earning, including student choice of subject and institution. Better information for schools. Better information for schools, advise and guide students whilst at school and the operation. Students' choice of subject and institution. Better information for schools. To help advise. Analysis more than 500 graduates found no significant difference between business schools that offer traditional courses and those besides a learning by doing approach to entrepreneurship education. The research challenge the ongoing trend across higher education institutes of that on experimental learning. The research challenges the ongoing trend across higher education institutions of teaching in experimental learning and suggests that universities basing on experimental universities need to reconsider their approach if they increase entrepreneurship awareness, if they in the Management Associated Aston Business School and author of the study said entrepreneurial education as major force. Said entrepreneurial education had seen as major force of capable of generating long-term socio-economic changes through developing entrepreneurial creative and feeling there are an ongoing shift towards experimental learning in business schools. There is little empirical evidence. Learning to write well in college means relearning how to write plainly and clearly. Now that doesn't mean that plainness is the only good style or that you should become a terrorist to spare. You should become a slave to spare. Formality and ornathiness have their place, and in the other hand, complexity can carry on a dizzying, breathtaking journey. Most of students most of the time should but most students most of the time should work to be sensibly simple. That's right. in relatively simple sentences. Okay, clear. That's faster. It makes arguments easier to follow, increase the chances a busy reader will bother to pay attention, and it lets you more attention on your moments of rhetorical flourish. "13 years later, this primitive, the flange was a groove that allowed the wheels to grip. Road rails called when we roads of rails called. The flange was a group that allowed the wheels to grip the rails better and as important. Society. Englishman William Joseph designed the first wagon with flanged wheels. By 17th iron had replaced the ore in the rails and in the wheels on the car. These primitive railroads consisted these early faith. My study of history of religion has revealed that human beings are spiritual. They exhibited religious beliefs at the same time they created works of art. These early faiths expressed The wonder mystery that seems always to have been essential component of human experience of this beautiful history of my study of the history of religion revealed that finally, this study was with students who were enrolled are enrolled in lower level classes. Conducted by this and further research may re-explore the findings of this study with other colleges. This would help determine if the students' expectations, experiences, and perceptions remain constant change. Graduates of Raqqa and Annaford have risen through the ranks to be have successfully risen through the ranks to be appointed associates at learning Western Sydney law firm. The promotion marks the of many years hard work. Culmination. Who are the first to rise to this? Australia is the tiny multicultural society viewed by many as the world's most desirable place to live. Here, Frank Wells traces Australia's intriguing and varied history to examine how this society from ancient origins emerged from its ancient Aborigine tribes and earliest British convicts. to today's modern nation, one that unifies is strong. Unifies its one that unifies links colonial past, but is Ministers' demand for help to cope with the pressure of an increasingly competitive political environment have been key drivers of the staffing system development, but there has not been commensurate growth in to support in the framework for to help cope with the pressure of an increasingly competitive political environment have been key drivers of the staffing system's development, but there has not been commensurate growth in fact, to support the operating framework for staff is fragmented and the voice of an animal is not heard as message, but interesting things. But there are interesting things that start to happen. Nature is no longer an alien. But instead something beautiful and exuberant, with a space for us to join in. Exuberant. Bird melodies have always been called songs for a reason. The information is mainly about keep patient area tidy and ensure they are cleaned regularly, wash hands, soap with contact where it is likely that they will be exposed to particles and the main machinery. Patient wash uniforms in order to handle and carefully and transfer the colors put in laundry bag, garden bin, should be dry cleaned regularly. Removing clutter or auditing infection control policies. Infection control. Goodness,
For many people, language acquisition starts at around about 12 months when kids say their first word, but don't forget the first year. That first year of life's very important as well, and indeed before you're born, remember, there are a couple of months before you're born when you're actually able to perceive in the womb something of the language that's around you. So language acquisition starts earlier than most people think. And it also ends later than most people think. When does child language acquisition stop? Well, in a sense, we're all children. We stay being children all our lives. There's no obvious end point. For learning sounds, of course, there is, and for learning grammar, there is, but vocabulary, that goes on for the rest of our lives. A million or more words in English, and most of us only have a vocabulary of 50, 60, 70,000 words, or whatever it is, and so there's always something more to learn. So remember that the two ends of child language acquisition are wider apart than some people think, and that means there's more scope for studying it than most people think.
The main focus of the lecture was on living village. What are the orders associated with the past?
In his book, The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat and Other Clinical Tales, urologist Oliver Sacks relates the tale of a medical student who one day woke up and found that his sense of smell was so acute that, like a dog, he could walk around identifying people, places, and things by his sense of smell. And what a wondrous experience it was. Like a visit to another world, he said. Not only we humans don't have a sense of smell as acute as many other animals, and we tend to rely more on what we see or hear to tell us about the world, still our sense of smell is powerful. Most of us can detect 10,000 different odors, from cigar smoke to a chlorinated swimming pool, from curry to a city sewer. And think about how a particular odor can instantly conjure up past memories. Maybe it's fresh cut grass that makes you think of childhood summers, or baking bread that reminds you of a special holiday.
It attempts to rely solely on
Experimental psychological research is conducted in a lab under controlled conditions. It attempts to rely solely on an application of research methods to understand behavior and mental processes. As an example of a psychological experiment, you might want to investigate people's perception of different tones. Specifically, you could ask the following question. Is it easier for people to discriminate one pair of tones from another depending on their frequency? To answer this, you would want to disprove the hypothesis that all tones are equally easy to discriminate.
understand behavior. PTE perception. EQUALY. Understand behavior. It attempts to rely solely on application research of methods to understand behaviors. Perception. PTI perception. PERCEPTION perceptive. QUENCY. Are equally easy. The image of
Graham Greene may have inadvertently supplied one of the key phrases of the past 50 years in the title of his novel, A Burnt-Out Case. The image of a dead fire perfectly fit the psychological aftermath of long hours, dashed hopes, and depression. And while burnout is not a medical diagnosis, it describes a condition we all recognize, except perhaps in ourselves.
Dead fire perfectly fit the physiological aftermath. Except literally.
Well, the banana is the first cultivated fruit. It's one of the food items that literally brought people out of the jungle, out of their hunter-gatherer lifestyles, and was there at the dawn of agriculture, which is what helped force human beings into communities. It's really one of the things that helped invent human culture. It's about 7,000 years of history. And the banana, from its center of origin, which is believed to be Papua New Guinea, it spread out with people who traveled in boats across the Pacific into the mainland of Asia and all the way south to Australia, across Indonesia and Micronesia, and eventually they moved as far as Africa and even possibly to Ecuador, all in this time, and all on paddled boats and wind-driven boats.
B-R-O-U-G-S-T, brought. T-A-W-N, T-A-W-N. Communities. Origin, center of origin. O-R-I-G-I-N, P-A-D-D-I-N. Piano literally brought. P-R-O-U-G-S-T. Don, C-O-M-M-U. C-O-M-M-U-N-I-T-I, communities. O-R-I-G-N, origin. O-R-I-G-N, P-A-D-D-L-E,
In the United States, the poet Walt Whitman published a work called Democratic Vistas. This was in 1871. I quote from that work. He's talking here about the development of a program of culture drawn out, not for a single class alone, or for the parlors or lecture rooms, but with an eye to the practical life and to the West, the working man, the facts and forms and jack planes and engines, and the broad range of the woman also, of the middle class and working strata, and with reference to the perfect equal quality of women and of a grand and powerful motherhood. So these ideas of the individual, the ordinary individual, as someone who has a right and a responsibility to an education, had begun clearly to emerge in the United States.
So starting with a question, why industrial cities matter. Well, in 1995 and 6, funded by the Joseph Ramsey Foundation, I did a study with a fellow researcher called The Slow Death of Great Cities. And that was because urban abandonment in America was happening on such a scale and causing such terror over here that when cities like Manchester and Newcastle started to show signs of empty properties emerging in their city streets, in their inner city streets, there was kind of quite serious panic. So that was my first exposure to what happens when cities start losing population in a significant way.
And we identified 15 priority projects which are supposed to be urgent and immediate needs of adaptation. And these projects, the first one is slightly being implemented, but there is so much bureaucracy behind the funding of that project that it still hasn't been implemented properly. So if these were urgent and immediate needs, then how come it's not being implemented on an urgent and immediate basis? Because the fund is not there. Even if the fund is there, some bureaucratic things are holding it behind. There are some of the funds, they say, like, you have to have certain infrastructures in place and certain things have to be in place for us to fund this additional climate change. The funds are, what everyone says in these climate change conferences, are not enough. They're just not enough.
Refers to the person who visited his school as being visionary. As being visionary.
When I was 14 years old, a visionary visited my school. The man was a pioneer in new technologies, and he had come to announce how the world I was growing up in was on the verge of radical change. He brandished a VHS cassette and announced that television was going to be transformed forever. Using the power of VHS, everyone would make their own TV programs. Instead of accepting the bland output of comedy and drama from the existing networks, we would simply take control ourselves and become producers as well as consumers. TV stations were going to close, corporations would...
The neuroendocrine system is under particular onslaught in our modern life. Not only does it serve as the conduit for our emotional life, but it is also under threat from our external environment. The amount of chemicals acting as so-called endocrine disruptors is going up by the day. These chemicals, which range from pesticides and herbicides to ingredients of plastics, which look chemically like some of the hormones in our bodies, can then bind to the receptor and cause a stimulation of the receptor, or block it so that the appropriate hormone cannot.
Logistics is really orchestrating what we now call globalization. Companies have outsourced and offshored many of their operations. In fact, some of them, almost their entire operations. And what's come to be called supply chain management, which is the strategic end of this business, is what knits it all together. It is what makes sure that things turn up where they should be, when they should be. And by squeezing costs out of the system, you don't carry so much stock, you don't need to have the warehouses of old, and you can move things faster and...
River systems can be classified by their basic size. Young streams are
River systems can be classified by their basic shapes. Young streams are generally straight, are in narrow, steep-sided valleys, and are often fast-flowing in a channel with many big rocks. Young streams have high gradients, meaning the elevation of the stream changes quickly with distance. Old rivers are in broad, flat valleys. They flow slowly and carry sand and mud. Old streams, like the lower part of the Mississippi River, have very low gradients. That is, the elevation changes very little over long distances.
Over half of patients had what we called no symptoms, no asthma, health relief.
Over half of patients had what we called the no symptoms, no asthma health belief. They thought about and managed their asthma as an acute episodic illness, the way someone would treat a cold or a flu. They felt when they had their wheezing or shortness of breath that's when they had their asthma, and it made perfect sense for them to use their quick relief medicines and their chronic controller medicines then. But once they started feeling better, they felt there was no reason for using those medicines because they felt okay.
It is absolutely vital that you acknowledge all your sources.
It is ABS or LUT, UECK, ABSO, ABSO, LUTELY, CKNO.
In any written assignment, a detailed literature review is very important.
Control systems in manufacturing provide a high level of accuracy.
CONTROL. 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 Control STM systems.